What does it truly mean to rise above fear, to walk into the unknown with nothing but faith in yourself? Imagine standing on a stage, heart pounding, not knowing whether you will fail or shine, yet choosing to take that step anyway. This is not just a story about success, but about the strength of believing in who you are, even when the world tells you otherwise. It is about discovering that empowerment is not something given to you. It is something you have always carried within. She grew up in an ordinary home, surrounded by love, values, and the warmth of family traditions. There was nothing extraordinary about her early life. No grand stage, no flashing cameras, no luxurious lifestyle. She was just a curious girl fascinated by science, books, and the idea of serving others. Her parents, both doctors, taught her discipline and compassion. They never once told her she was less, because she was a girl. In fact, she never even knew the meaning of woman empowerment, because she never felt powerless. She was encouraged to dream, to make mistakes, to learn from them, and to stand up stronger each time. At school, she was studious, but she also carried the charm of innocence. Sometimes shy, sometimes bold, life seemed predictable, until one day destiny knocked on her door. A journey she had never imagined was about to begin, and it would transform her into a symbol of courage and change for countless young women across the world. Her life took a sudden turn when she stepped into the world of beauty pageants. It wasn't something she had ever dreamed of. Heels, makeup, and the glittering stage were foreign to her. She was a medical student who barely knew how to apply eyeliner. But destiny has a way of surprising us, and this was her chance to test her courage. At first, she hesitated. Doubts whispered in her mind, am I good enough? Do I belong here? Yet, she reminded herself of the values her family instilled: courage, honesty, and the will to try. So, she decided to risk it all. Walking on that stage for the first time, she felt her heart racing faster than ever. The lights were blinding, the audience overwhelming. But beneath the nervousness was a quiet determination. She was not there to be perfect. She was there to be herself. And that was her greatest strength. Competing at the national level was a test of endurance. Every day brought new challenges, long rehearsals, interviews, grooming sessions, and endless judgment from strangers. She wasn't the tallest nor the most experienced, but she had something many overlook: authenticity. She smiled through her mistakes, laughed at her flaws, and showed a heart that cared deeply about people. When asked about her vision for society, she didn't speak of glamour or fame. She spoke of health, of dignity, of the silent struggles women face. She noticed that in many villages, girls skipped school simply because of menstruation taboos. That struck her deeply. She realized her purpose was bigger than herself. Winning wasn't about the crown. It was about using her voice for those who were unheard. With every step, every answer, every moment on stage, she grew, not into someone new, but into the best version of herself. When the night of the final competition arrived, she stood backstage trembling. Cameras flashed, the world was watching, and her family was somewhere in the crowd. She kept searching for their faces, and when she finally saw them, her fear melted into strength. Her parents' proud smiles reminded her of who she was. As she walked into the spotlight, she knew this was more than a contest. It was a test of courage, of faith, of everything she had learned since childhood. The questions came fast, sharp, designed to shake her. But she answered with honesty, not rehearsed perfection. When asked about the most deserving salary in the world, her answer came straight from her heart. A mother deserves the highest salary, for she nurtures not just a family, but the future of humanity. The crowd erupted, but for her, it wasn't about applause. It was about truth. The crown was placed on her head, and in that single moment, her world changed forever. She was no longer just a student from a middle-class family. She had become a global icon. Yet, she didn't see it as her victory alone. She saw it as a chance to serve, to make her voice louder for those who had none. The glittering crown was heavy, not with jewels, but with responsibility. She knew the world expected her to shine, but she wanted more than that. She wanted to bring change. Her project on menstrual hygiene, which started as a small initiative, now had a global platform. She began working with women in villages, turning them into entrepreneurs who could produce and distribute affordable sanitary products. This was not charity, it was empowerment. To her, true beauty was not in appearance, but in purpose. Traveling through villages, she witnessed realities that textbooks never taught her. Children without proper clothes, families surviving with the bare minimum, and young girls whose dreams were cut short because of silence around menstruation. In those moments, her heart broke, but it also ignited a stronger purpose. She understood that empowerment was not about speeches. It was about creating opportunities where women could sustain themselves with dignity. She worked tirelessly with communities, showing them that producing sanitary pads locally was not just about health. It was about financial independence. For many women, it was the first time they held money they had earned on their own. Their eyes sparkled with pride. Their voices grew stronger. She realized that when you empower a woman, you transform an entire family and eventually a whole community. Her mission had just begun, and she knew the road ahead would be long and challenging. Her work attracted attention, not because she was Miss World, but because she walked into villages with humility. She didn't arrive with glamour or cameras. She came as a learner, listening more than speaking. She understood that true leadership begins with empathy. Sitting with women on mud floors, sharing simple meals, and laughing together, she became one of them. She reminded herself that change does not happen overnight. It happens through trust, patience, and persistence. Slowly, barriers began to break. Women who once whispered about menstruation started to speak openly. Mothers encouraged daughters to attend school, even during their cycles. A silent revolution had started, one that could not be reversed. Every time she returned home, she carried stories of courage, resilience, and hope. These stories fueled her determination, reminding her that this journey was far more rewarding than any crown or title she could ever wear. Her travels were not limited to her own country. Soon, she was invited to speak on global platforms where leaders, entrepreneurs, and changemakers gathered. Standing on those stages, she felt the same nervousness she once felt as a student on her first pageant stage. Yet she spoke from her heart, and her words carried weight because they were born from real experiences. She spoke about women as entrepreneurs of families, as creators of human capital, and as silent warriors shaping the future. Her message was simple yet powerful. Women are not waiting to be empowered. They already hold the power within. The challenge is to help them recognize it. Audiences listened, not just with respect, but with admiration. Here was a young woman, only in her 20s, yet carrying the wisdom of a lifetime. She proved that age does not define impact. Purpose does. Amid her global recognition, she never forgot her roots. Whenever she returned home, she sought comfort in her mother's embrace. Her mother was not just her role model, but her guiding force, her Durga Ma, her angel. Watching her mother balance her career as a neuroscientist and her role as a nurturing parent, she learned what true strength looks like. Her mother had taught her that failure was never the end. It was a stepping stone. With that wisdom, she learned to face setbacks with grace. Not every initiative succeeded instantly. Some villages resisted, some programs failed, and sometimes resources fell short. But she never gave up. She reminded herself that progress, no matter how small, was still progress. Each obstacle strengthened her resolve. The little girl who once feared wearing heels was now walking boldly through challenges far greater than the stage she once stood on. Her journey was transforming not only others, but also herself. With every speech, every project, every smile she witnessed from women who found hope again, she felt herself growing. She was no longer just a dreamer. She was a doer, a change maker. But what amazed her the most was the ripple effect. Young girls who saw her story began to believe in their own strength. Mothers encouraged daughters to pursue education. Communities began to speak openly about issues once considered taboo. She realized her story was not about becoming Miss World. It was about becoming a mirror, reflecting the possibilities hidden within every woman. She knew crowns would fade, titles would be replaced, but the impact she left in people's lives would remain forever. And that, she believed, was the true definition of success, when your purpose outlives your presence. She often reflected on her childhood, realizing how fortunate she was to grow up in a family where she never had to question her worth. But now she understood that not every girl had the same privilege. In many places, girls were silenced before they could even discover their voices. Some were told their dreams were too big. Others were made to believe they were less than their brothers. This realization strengthened her resolve. She knew her mission was not to give speeches alone, but to create a shift in thinking. She wanted every girl to feel what she once felt: equal, capable, limitless. When she entered rural colleges to speak, she didn't arrive as a celebrity. She arrived as one of them, a young student who also once doubted herself. And when she spoke, the girls listened, not because of her crown, but because her story reflected their hidden desires. One of the defining moments of her journey came when she visited a remote village near the border. The people there had never seen someone like her before, and at first, they were hesitant. But she sat with them, asked about their lives, and listened carefully. A young girl no older than 12 shyly confessed that she stopped attending school every month because she had no access to sanitary pads. That one sentence hit her harder than any crown ever could. She thought, how many dreams are cut short because of something so natural, so simple, yet so ignored. It became clear that her project was more than a campaign. It was a lifeline. She looked into the girl's eyes and promised herself that she would fight until no child ever had to give up education because of silence or shame. That promise became her fuel. Her project began to grow with the help of partnerships. She collaborated with local manufacturers to produce affordable sanitary products and trained women from villages to distribute them. It wasn't charity, it was opportunity. These women became entrepreneurs, earning respect in their families and communities. For the first time, they were not only managing households, but also contributing financially. Their confidence soared, and with it, their influence. Husbands who once dismissed them now sought their opinions. Children began to see their mothers as leaders. She realized that empowerment was not a gift one person gave to another. It was a spark that, once ignited, could light up entire generations. Every woman she worked with became a beacon of hope, proving that even the smallest initiatives can create massive waves of change when rooted in courage and compassion. Despite her growing achievements, the path was far from easy. Critics often questioned her ability, dismissing her as just a beauty queen. Others doubted the sustainability of her initiatives. Some even mocked her for leaving medicine temporarily to chase what they considered idealistic dreams. But she refused to be defined by the opinions of others. She reminded herself of the values her parents had taught her: resilience, kindness, and hard work. For her, failure wasn't an enemy. It was a teacher. Every criticism sharpened her focus. Every doubt fueled her determination. She understood that true change is always met with resistance. If people weren't questioning her, it meant she wasn't pushing boundaries hard enough. And so, she kept moving forward, carrying with her the belief that what she was doing wasn't for fame. It was for the silent millions who deserved a voice. The more she traveled, the more she discovered a universal truth. Women everywhere shared the same struggles, regardless of culture or geography. Whether it was a village in India, a city in Africa, or a community in Europe, the challenges were strikingly similar: access to education, dignity in health, and freedom to choose their paths. She found herself connecting with women across borders, united not by language, but by shared resilience. Each conversation reminded her that empowerment was not a trend or a movement. It was humanity's responsibility. She began to see herself not just as a representative of her country, but as a citizen of the world. And with that realization came a deeper sense of duty. Her mission was no longer limited to local change. It was about inspiring a global awakening, where women everywhere recognized the power already within them. Her growing influence meant more invitations to conferences and leadership forums. She shared panels with CEOs, politicians, and Nobel laureates, yet she never felt intimidated. She reminded herself that wisdom does not come from titles but from experiences. Standing at those podiums, she spoke with simplicity, and that simplicity became her strength. When asked about women empowerment, she often said, "Women are not waiting to be empowered. They are already powerful. What we must do is remove the barriers that blind them to their own strength." Her words resonated because they reflected truth. Audiences didn't just clap, they carried her message back into their own communities. Each speech was a seed, and she hoped those seeds would grow into forests of change. She realized that the world didn't need more heroes. It needed more humans willing to see and support one another. Amid the spotlight and global recognition, she sometimes craved simplicity. She missed sitting at her study desk, surrounded by medical books, dreaming of becoming a doctor. She longed for evenings spent laughing with friends without cameras following her. But she knew life had given her this platform for a reason. Instead of dwelling on what she missed, she chose to see what she had gained, the ability to reach millions. Her medical knowledge gave her insights into health issues, while her new role gave her the voice to address them. It was as if destiny had woven two paths together, shaping her into a bridge between science and humanity. In those reflective moments, she realized she was not losing her identity as a doctor. She was expanding it. She wasn't just healing individuals anymore. She was healing societies. Her journey wasn't just about achievements. It was also about vulnerability. There were nights she cried silently, overwhelmed by the weight of expectations. The world saw her crown, but not the sleepless nights, the exhaustion, or the pressure to always appear strong. Yet, in those vulnerable moments, she discovered her greatest strength: authenticity. She didn't hide her struggles, she embraced them. She spoke openly about fear, failure, and self-doubt, and to her surprise, people related to it more deeply than to her successes. It reminded everyone that strength is not the absence of weakness. It is the courage to rise despite it. She became a living example that one doesn't need to be perfect to inspire, one only needs to be real. Her honesty made her message even more powerful, proving that transparency can break barriers as effectively as determination. During one of her international trips, she met a group of young students who asked her what her secret to confidence was. She smiled and told them, "Confidence is not about knowing you'll never fail. It's about trusting yourself enough to try even if you do." The room fell silent, and she could see the thoughts sinking in. For her, confidence was never natural. It was a muscle built through practice, mistakes, and persistence. Every time she faced a stage, she felt fear, but she chose to walk forward anyway. That choice, to act despite fear, was what shaped her. She encouraged the students to see failure not as an end, but as a stepping stone. Just like her, they too could build courage over time. The students left inspired, and she left with a renewed sense of responsibility to ensure her journey always lit the path for others. Back home, she often visited colleges to interact with young women. She would stand in simple auditoriums, looking into eager eyes filled with dreams. She didn't sugarcoat her journey. She told them about the struggles, the ridicule, the pressure, and the moments she felt like quitting. But she also told them about the joy of persistence, the beauty of resilience, and the pride of standing tall after every fall. Her words were not scripted, they were lived. She believed the most powerful way to inspire was to share the truth. And every time she finished speaking, young girls rushed to her, saying, "If you can do it, maybe we can too." That was her greatest reward. She knew crowns would fade, fame would pass, but these sparks she ignited in young hearts would continue to burn long after her journey was over. As the years passed, her identity began to evolve beyond the crown she once wore. She was no longer introduced only as a title holder, but as a change maker, a humanitarian, and a voice for dignity. Yet she remained grounded, never forgetting the simplicity of her roots. She often said, "I am still the same girl who once feared putting on heels. The world may see me differently, But I see myself as a learner, still growing, still discovering. This humility allowed her to connect with people across ages and backgrounds. She became a reminder that greatness does not come from standing above others, but by standing beside them. And with each passing day, she realized her mission was not about being remembered. It was about making sure the women she worked with remembered their own power. Her story began to inspire movements she never anticipated. In schools, teachers used her journey as an example of courage. In villages, women formed support groups to share knowledge about health and hygiene. In cities, young professionals found the courage to take risks, leaving behind careers they hated to pursue their true passions. She had unknowingly become a ripple that spread across oceans. But she often reminded people that her journey was not a fairy tale. It was filled with doubts, tears, and countless moments of fear. The difference was not that she had no fear. It was that she acted despite it. That was the essence of her message. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward with it. And with that simple truth, she continued to ignite change wherever she went. In her quietest moments, she would reflect on the meaning of empowerment. To her, empowerment was not about speeches, awards, or recognition. It was about a woman in a rural home realizing she had a choice. It was about a mother sending her daughter to school without hesitation. It was about a girl holding her first sanitary pad and understanding she deserved dignity. These small moments were far more powerful than any stage she had ever walked on. They reminded her that change begins not in grand halls, but in humble homes. She realized her crown was never made of jewels. It was made of these stories, stitched together with resilience, courage, and love. And though the world called her empowered, she knew the truth. She had simply helped women see the power they already carried. Her mission eventually expanded into global collaborations. She partnered with organizations that focused on health, education, and equality. Together, they built systems that provided opportunities for women long after the spotlight faded. She knew true change was sustainable only when it outlived the individual who started it. That thought gave her peace. She didn't need to be in every village, every school, or every country. What mattered was that the spark had been passed on, and she could see it burning brightly in the eyes of every young girl who chose courage over silence, dreams over doubt, and resilience over fear. The little girl who once doubted herself had become a woman who believed not just in herself, but in the world's capacity to transform. Her story, from an ordinary childhood to a global platform, was never about perfection. It was about persistence. It was about daring to take one step, then another, even when the path seemed impossible. She proved that no dream is too big and no obstacle too strong for a heart that believes. Her journey was not just hers. It belonged to every woman who has ever questioned her worth, every girl who has ever felt unseen, and every person who has ever doubted their own strength. She became living proof that greatness is not born. It is built, one choice at a time. And as her story comes to a close, it leaves behind a powerful reminder: the power to change the world has always been within us. If this story inspired you, don't let it end here. Carry its message forward. Share it, live it, and let it ignite courage in others. And if you enjoyed this journey, like this video and join our channel for more stories that move hearts and awaken strength. Together, let's continue to build a world where every dream has a chance to shine.